Cheers, Phil. Thanks. I mean, I wish I could take some credit for the brilliantly articulate and coherent students that preceded me, but I can't, unfortunately. Hopefully you can see a shared screen there that says digitally accessible learning design. For all the colleagues in the UK and overseas, I've just posted a link in the chat. And if you'd rather follow online, on a mobile device, you can scan the code there to participate, because this is going to be participatory. But if you prefer to just sit back and listen, then there is a link in the slides that will enable you to do this activity after the session if it's all a bit too much. So take your choice, mobile device, or follow the link in the chat. And it's basically open a browser, menti.com, code 72419145, and I'll just put that in the chat one more time. Okay, so I'm conscious of the time. I'm going to whiz through things a little bit. I'm Martin. I work in UCL Arena Centre, which is the Educational Development Centre, and I've been working with our head of digital accessibility, who's not here today, Ben Watson, and my contact details are on there. And what we've been trying to do is address some of the legal and ethical imperatives that are driving us towards being more inclusive in our digital practice, particularly in terms of accessibility. So in the UK, we have the Equality Act 2010, legislation in 2018 that is saying we have to do these things. But really, from our point of view and from the sort of values base that I'm coming from, this is about wider access, participation and inclusion goals, many of which Susan's been talking about earlier. So it's about social justice, it's about expectations, particularly on the back of what happened during COVID. And it's very much a part of our effort to resist these narratives of let's get back to normal. And in some of those discussions that I've been having, that getting back to normal, whatever it happens to be, is also losing much of the good practice that people were learning how to accommodate into their practice. But above all, in terms of learning design, what we have been arguing is that accessible learning design isn't easy, but it's much better to do things by design, i.e. preemptively, rather than trying to retrofit accessibility onto existing stuff when it's possibly too late. So those are the drivers there. I could talk for hours about that, but I'm whizzing through. So apologies a little for that. We've got a new digital accessibility at UCL. So one of the drivers is that policy. But what we're really keen to do is to avoid just ticking the policy box. We want to enact this. We want to make it real. We have been tapping into the concept of universal design, particularly in terms of practice, and been using a couple of things as a sort of vehicle to exemplify this, particularly captioning of video content. Because a lot of people are aware of this as an obligation, and we're trying to encourage people to find paths of least resistance to doing this easily, using existing tools, and not just accepting the automated captions as their baseline, but pushing them to think about how they might edit and improve those towards 100% accuracy. So it's about an anticipatory approach, not a reactive one. And that anticipation comes at the learning design stage, we think. In our bigger plans, we're trying to distinguish between beliefs, knowledge and behaviours, because on the one hand, people say, yeah, that's great, but don't know how to do it. Or they might say, yeah, that's great, I know how to do it, but I don't have time. So actually, we need to distinguish between these three aspects and turn beliefs into knowledge and into behaviours if it's going to be successful. The cow, by the way, is about that anticipation. If I see a warning sign in the road saying cows may be ahead and I don't slow down, I'm an idiot. I need to anticipate the possibility of them being there rather than slamming into a cow and it being too late. In the same way, in my activities, I need to anticipate that there is going to be a real diversity of students, many of whom may not be neurodivergent by their own definition or by some kind of statement or have a disability. But many of them, like me, will choose to use captions as a way of better understanding the content that they're engaged with. So I need to acknowledge all of that. At our institution, we have a whole bunch of tools that we're using. So institutional maturity, the AbilityNet stuff, if you've not come across that, Search AbilityNet, Blackboard Ally to look at the quality of online resources, particularly in Moodle, our virtual learning environment. We're encouraging people to use in-text tools, Microsoft Word, and so on and so forth. But what we really felt was missing was something that enabled colleagues to make a judgment about themselves at an individual level that was anticipatory rather than analytical. So this is where your opportunity to engage with this comes in. Forgive the small table there. There is a larger one there that you can access, and it will take you to this post here, which gives you the table here. What I'm asking you to do here is just to have a gut response to this question. Where do you think you sit in terms of your own digital accessibility practice? It's completely anonymous, so nobody's going to know what you put. Are you unwilling to engage for whatever reason? Are you unable? Are you doing it but kind of reluctantly? Are you doing it willingly but wish you knew more? Are you an ally or are you a real champion? Where do you sit with this? Let's turn these into percentages for more drama. So look at that. That's fantastic. Thank you for the honesty down here. We could spend hours debating this, but what the point of it is that wherever you are, even if you're here, how can you help me and my colleagues bring more people to this position? Can you move up? Can you move on yourself? How are we going about this? How are we getting people to plot themselves on here beyond a sort of gut reaction? Well, it's perhaps through the activity that I'll show you in just a second. I'll give a few more people a chance to respond, although it's nice to have 130 people there already. So yeah, as I said right at the beginning, if this is too difficult to read or make a decision about at this stage, you can have access to this afterwards, and I'll just change the parameters slightly so that it's more easy to access. Okay, I'm going to move on now because I want to show you the 12 indicative questions that we've used to kind of illustrate common behaviours. The first 6 are on this slide. Now, what you should be able to see are a series of sliders. This first slider is that 0 level of unwillingness, right the way through to 6 on a Likert scale. So you can position yourself anywhere from, sorry, 5, anywhere from 0 to 5 on a range of things. This is going to take a while for people to do. So I do want to give you an opportunity to do that. So while you're looking at those sliders, what you will see is that the mean score across the board, across this whole group of people, potentially 300 people responding to this, and you can then position yourself accordingly. Now, what this diagram is showing is, if I look at this from an individual perspective, where my areas of potential weakness might be. It's fantastic seeing so much confidence here in this space. I wish I could say that this would be the general picture for all of the people that I work with at my institution. But where we see actually that there might be some areas of frailty or potential weakness, then we can target the individual with resources as a consequence of that. So if I'm confident in all of these areas, but in this lower area here, 3.7 at the moment, checking for color contrast issues, I can then direct my colleague to some specific self-development resources or an opportunity for a workshop or maybe some coaching or a colleague or some other way of supporting that practice in a specific way. This is not comprehensive, but it is 12 aspects that we think are really fundamental and indicative of that wider sense of how can we improve digital accessibility practice. Okay, again, given the shortness of time, I am going to move on, but thank you to all of those that were able to respond there. If you haven't had a chance, you can finish that off before going on to the next slide, which I'm going to show you now. And these are the final 6 elements that we've identified. So it says, for those of you who are not using Mentimeter, things like I explain acronyms when I use them. So this is partly digital, partly analog. It's in that kind of hybrid space, if you like. I enable automatic speech recognition captions in all multimedia, or I enable them and I edit them. I signpost students to assistive technologies. I share electronic content with students, such as slides as head of teaching sessions, and I accessibility check documents before finalising them. So already, even with 20 people in there, we can see a slightly different picture in here, and already indicative, perhaps, if this was one department doing this, of way that I might focus my attention in a practical way on turning beliefs into knowledge, into behaviours. And that's really actually quite critical to what we're trying to achieve. So just while colleagues are still completing that, I'll show you again on here what's available. So in this post, I've put an audio version in for those that prefer that. What you'll see is our engagement model here. If anyone's got any suggestions, by the way, for ways we could improve the labels, a couple of people, well, quite a lot of people have said, I'm not sure I like reluctant compliant. Maybe you could use this, that and the other. This is what we've got at the moment, but we're open to suggestions. It's an evolving model. This link here will take you to the slides. I'll change the way that you can access it after this session, and the results for anybody who wants them are there. So I'm going to put that link there directly into the Teams chat so that people can access all of this after the session if they are interested. Okay, so we've got 115 responses in there. I'm so grateful for your data. It is anonymous. I'm not going to be following anybody up directly. Just a final slide then. We've got some links to the accessibility resources that we provide at UCL. We've got some contact links there to me and to my colleague Ben, who is my partner in crime here, and a further link to the resources for this session, should you want to follow that up. So short and sweet, but my clock says that I am just about a minute over. So I thank you for your tolerance there of me, Phil, and I'll stop sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Martin. That was really good. I love it. And I love the reference to your partner in crime. It used to be my partner in crime. You stole him. Does anyone have a question? We've got time for one question. So if anyone does, if they could raise their hand, then we can unmute your mic so you can ask Martin. We've got Mary there. Mary, do you want to unmute yourself? You should be able to do that.
Thank you so much. I love this. I know it's very cheeky because you shared wonderful things with us already. Do you have a shareable version of the survey? Because I think this would be great for us to use with our own teaching staff.
Currently, we only have the Mentimeter version, but if you have even if you only have a free account, with 3 questions, basic questions in there, you could still use this with colleagues. We are working on a web interface for this, so that's taking a lot longer, but it will be open access when it's ready. So our hope is that it will be a self-assessment tool available to anybody that will then point to specific resources and give some guidance based on that individual's response. That's where we're going with it, but this is all we've got so far.
It looks really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I think we are going to have to move on, but thank you again, Martin. There's been so many comments in the chat as well, and it was great to see so many people engaging with the with your Menti there, so that was great to see.